Hey everyone, welcome back to my channel. It's Dr. Alessandro. And today's video, I'm going to be actually responding to a response to my video where I, effectively speaking, stated that I did not recommend going to dental school at this time for those people who may be considering dental school and dentistry as a profession. Similar things do exist, similar situations do exist in medicine, possibly veterinary medicine, and in all the professions. But, we'll kind of focus on this answer where a respondent on a message board decided to take issue with my video by saying that I was looking at things in a pessimistic manner, with the half-empty glass attitude, or maybe that I was scared of competition or something, silly like that. Now, this person is a self-proclaimed successful dentist somewhere in some corner of Arizona or somewhere, let's just say. I'm just not sure that this successful dentist maybe is thinking about things in terms of the numbers carefully. So I'm kind of going to put up some signs that I made showing you kind of what the debt load should be. So this, my friends, is about the average debt load that, students who are, going to dental school now or about to enter dental school will emerge from dental school with. Now, it's a plus or minus, and every situation is unique and independent from one another. So this may apply to some people, but not apply to others. Some people may have more, some people may have less. So $500,000, though, if it's not the average, it's going to be within a very short time because of how quickly tuitions keep rising. I would say that between your, cost of tuition, which is anywhere from probably about $50,000 to $60,000 all the way to well over $100,000, I would say between that and living expenses, why don't you call it $90,000 for tuition a year and $35,000 for living expenses a year? 125 times 4, and you come up with that $500,000 total figure for the 4 years of education. Now, that total figure of debt that I am referring to, which I showed you on my paper, is not including any debt that was previously acquired from studies, from college, undergraduate studies, or whatever other situation the person may have had. So with that debt, of course, you get a bank to give you a loan. Now, the loans typically run 6.5 to 7.8%. So that's the interest rate. Now, that was as of a few years ago when I was speaking with somebody who had loans, and so they had their student loans, and they were saying that those were the rates that they had seen. So I'm speaking for somebody with experience who was willing to share that information with me. So what does that mean? So when you take, for example, maybe with this, $500,000, 6.5 to 7.8%, on that $500,000. So what I did was I split the difference. I decided, why don't we do it? Why don't we see what's the interest, just the interest, yearly interest payments at, say, 7%, which is less than half of, halfway between the 6.5 and 7.8. So at 7%, you will be paying just in interest alone $35,000 a year. I'm going to repeat that. Just with 7%, you will be paying $35,000 per year in interest. Now, you've got to realize $35,000 is not touching the principal of the loan. So you're not actually paying the loan down. You're just paying the interest on the loan. Okay. So I'm not sure if that successful practitioner was thinking about that. I mean, again, when he went to dental school and when others went to dental school, the loans were probably less, the tuitions were less, the cost of living was less. So, being removed from dental school by a number of years maybe helps people to perhaps forget about that or not remember it quite as well. It's a different ballgame now. It's a different situation now. So, again, without touching the principal, you're paying $35,000 a year. And that's post-tax dollars, folks. Post-tax. So what would it be pre-tax? Well, that depends on the state you live in, your tax bracket, and all sorts of other stuff. But this is kind of an average. It's a base it doesn't mean, again, every situation is unique. If you're in a different state, you may be taxed less or more depending where you are. But in order just to pay the interest, you have to earn approximately $50,000 just to pay the interest. Again, you're not touching the principal of the loan, and you haven't put a roof over your head. You haven't fed yourself. You haven't paid for any of the important things like life insurance, potentially, if you want to have that, disability insurance, which you should or must have, as a dentist, your health insurance, your license, your DEA fees, all the other things that go into your transportation, anything else that happens to be necessary for life, your continuing education. Some practices, if you go there, may provide a stipend towards that, but you might be paying for a bunch on your own. So these are all things that come into play when you're thinking about, your decision to go to dental school, or at this point financially, probably not. And I would recommend probably not. Again, things could change in the future. I don't know, time will tell. But right now, that kind of a picture is bleak. Now, here's the other part, which, again, this successful dentist may not have thought of. And this is an important one. So what happened is this: when COVID-19 came about, it shut down dental schools. So graduates, of the classes of maybe 2020, 2021, 2022, 2023, and so forth, don't have access to the clinics, or did not have access to the clinics, and still have restricted access in some places. Not all. Every school has managed things differently. But so the students, the graduates, and recent grads and upcoming new grads didn't get quite the clinical experience that previous classes did. So that's an important thing to keep in mind. Okay. So they didn't get the clinical experience, and the students that were in the pre-clinic also had their hours restricted and continue in many cases to have their hours restricted. So they're not getting the necessary repetition, hand skills, handwork, the drilling on plastic teeth that we all did when we were in dental school. They're not getting the hours, they're not getting the repetition that they need. Okay, in many cases, not all. Some schools have managed this successfully and have gotten around this, but many schools have restricted access. What does that mean? That means that just the hand skills are not going to be there, or not as good, okay? Because it does require repetition. It does require practice in order to keep on, improving, getting better, becoming more skilled, becoming a more seasoned dentist. So those are all reasons why I'm still doubling down. I'm saying you should not go to dental school at this time. It costs too much. You're not getting the repetition. You're not getting the clinical experience. And believe me, even when you graduate from dental school, you still basically are extremely green, let's face it. Even with a lot of clinical experience compared to maybe some of your peers, you still are not very experienced. So, this further hampers things. In another video, I do recommend that pretty much all the students that are considering going just into general dentistry and not specializing, instead do a 1-year residency program in general dentistry, whether it be an AEGD or a GPR. I would recommend all of you, if you're in dental school and you were affected by COVID-19, that is, your clinical experience was reduced, your preclinical experience was cut down, I would encourage you all to apply for AEGDs and GPRs. Get that extra time, get the extra repetition, get the extra practice. So that said, I do appreciate you all joining me, and I'm doubling down. I still don't think you should go to dental school because of all the reasons I cited. But again, things could change. Conditions could change in the future, and I'm hopeful for that. That someday I can turn around and say, hey, look, it's worth it again. So that said, thank you all again for joining me, and hope you're all staying well and healthy.